I actually have two kids. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-week-old. The first step to having a business is letting people know that you even exist. That sounds like a profit-based decision, but that's not who we want to be.
Welcome to Founders 40. Today on this episode, we have Abby Johnson, CEO of Matterhorn Business Development. And today what we're going to talk about, we have a goal. We have a goal of trying to help you all create a business plan for those that are over 40. You have kids, you have a family. We're going to help you generate a business plan in this conversation. So before we get into that, Abby, thank you for taking some time out of your schedule to join us to actually do this with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
So number one, I think just getting to it is if you have a person that has kids, they have a family, the thing in starting a business is going to be the time. In your experience of working with a lot of different business owners, how much time do they need per week, per day to be able to get something started?
So this is going to really vary per industry and what you're doing. And if you're something in the home service business or business, out in the local community, you have a physical location, those types of industries are usually going to still be roughly a 9-to-5 type structure. You have to be open for your customers. If you're doing something like what I do, like I'm doing consulting and coaching, I can make my own schedule. Yes, I have some clients who are very specific of when they need to talk, but I can be more flexible. So I actually have two kids. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-week-old actually. And I'm able to work, I only work probably 20 hours a week. Now it took time to get to that point. I didn't just, start my business and then the business comes to you. So I would say in the beginning, I would still plan on probably 40 hours a week, if not more, depending on your industry. But the cool thing, I think, is that you can create your own schedule around that. It doesn't have to be a set 9-to-5. If your kids are in school until 2 and you want to go pick them up and be with them from 2 till their bedtime, and then put in some extra time after bedtime, you can do that. That's one of the things me and my husband do. We work together is before the new baby arrived, we were using after bedtime as like our catch up admin time, sending out some emails, things that didn't require talking to customers or other people. So I'm going to be honest, it's still going to be hard work. It's not easy to own a business, but I think the flexibility you get is what is going to be more rewarding than, sitting behind a desk, stuck at your desk, answering to someone else, that kind of thing.
You mentioned depending on the business that we create, there might be additional, the time constraint might be a little different. So let's do this for the sake of this episode so people have some type of, understanding of that. What is a business they can start? Because if you go online, if you type in YouTube and you say, hey, look, there's a lot of people saying out there, hustle culture, you can make XYZ dollars, 10 hours a week, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of that. And I've known people to put in 10 hours a week, 2 hours a day on a set project over time and build that up depending on what that is. Mm-hmm. I want, as an example, someone's watching this probably wants to go into a services industry. Let's say they want to be a service. They want to be a plumber. They want to own a plumbing business, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, you have to go out to sites. But if I'm working a 9-to-5, what are things that I can do 2 hours a day to start building up that clientele?
Yeah. So I would start, no matter what kind of business you're getting into. I think a good example is like a bookkeeper. That's a really easy thing. Okay. If you're already doing that in your corporate job, obviously whatever skill you already have is easier to translate over to work for yourself. But I think bookkeeping is a good example. Your actual deliverable to your client, you can do on your own time. You can be doing that at 11 o'clock at night if that's what you want to do. But in terms of building the business and building the clientele and kind of starting it as a side hustle, I think just a couple hours a day, like you said, is fine. And where you want to start is with who you know. That's the starting point for anything. Even if you're like, well, I don't know anyone. I just know I have like 5 friends and my family members. That's fine. Start with them. The first step to having a business is letting people know that you even exist and that you're doing it. Use your personal profiles, post on your Facebook. Hey, everyone, I'm starting to do bookkeeping now, or I'm starting my own plumbing company, or I'm starting whatever it is. And let people know that you're there, and you never know who's going to need your service. It might be Susan from you went to high school with and you never talked to her, but you're Facebook friends with her. And it's like, oh, hey, I saw Abby starting a business and I happen to need bookkeeping. So I might as well reach out to Abby because like I know and like her already. Right. So the first step of starting any business is making yourself known. So that's the greatest thing you can do with 2 hours a day. If that's all you have to start out, or you're trying to kind of keep your day job while you build something up.
Because I know for me, I have a 9 to 5, have a newborn, have other responsibilities.
Yeah.
I can squeeze in 2 hours. Right. I can squeeze in 2 hours. So that's a great way to do that. Okay. I like your example, the bookkeeper example. So I'm reaching out to individuals, letting them know that, hey, I'm doing this thing. So in the beginning part of the process, do you tell people, hey, run out? I know a lot of people say run out, get your LLC, business bank, all that stuff. Or do you just say, hey, first go out and let's tell people what you have and just try to go find your first customer and see if this and try to do validation first? Are you with that train of thinking right there?
I would say so. Like I like to do the LLC and bank accounts pretty early on, just because if you start making money, it starts to get very muddied and messy. But having a proof of concept is important. So I would go out, maybe get your first 2 customers or clients. If you have a recurring service and hey, even if you're only getting $100 a month from someone or whatever it may be, for tax purposes, for all of those things, you're going to want an LLC. You're definitely going to want separate bank accounts, because that's the biggest mistake I see people make, is then the money coming in starts getting mixed in with personal stuff. It's hard to know what expenses were business and what was personal. Filing taxes becomes a nightmare. If you ever get audited, that's really going to be a nightmare. So I guess I'm a little in the middle of, go out, get a couple customers, make sure they actually want what you're selling. I know a lot of people maybe have a more creative flair, and they're like, hey, I'm going to start, making custom mugs or, window art or something. I had someone contact me about that one. So like, if you're going to do something where you're like, hey, I have a new idea, it's not just like a simple service, but like, hey, I have this new creative idea. You definitely want to test it out. Are people even interested in your new custom mugs? Is anyone going to even buy them? Should you even be investing your time and money in that idea? So that is where like the proof of concept phase happens.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So definitely you want to make sure people want whatever you're selling before you invest your time and money and go through all of that process that you were talking about.
Yeah, that's a great distinction in that I've never picked that up. Like if you're going to be a bookkeeper or a plumber, you already know the market's there. Like
right.
The market exists. You don't need to be doing that. It's more or less, hey, how do I differentiate from the competition to stand out to the market? But people are going to need a plumber. They're going to need bookkeeping. So that's a great point. So understanding your initial idea and where it lands in the market is to know if I need to validate or I can just go ahead and get those things set up. Okay, so we're at the point now. We have an idea. We have a bank account. We're going out. We're getting individuals. We're getting a few clients. We're putting stuff out on Facebook, whatever. How are you telling someone where should they put their money to in lead generation? They only have, they only put a few dollars in there. What vehicle are you telling them to use this as your vehicle for sales lead generation?
So I like to kind of build on marketing.
Okay.
Like, don't try to go do everything all at one time. Like, if you're just starting out, you don't need to go do Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and, talking to your community and this and that. Like, pick wherever the lowest hanging fruit is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want, in terms of free stuff you can do, it's obviously what I said already of reaching out to who you know. But what I also like to tell people is there are these Facebook groups where it's a Facebook group for your community. So like Tampa Bay happenings, and it's like 50,000 people who all live in Tampa Bay where I'm near, and they all talk about what's happening in the community. And usually in these groups, they have like, hey, on Mondays, you can post about your business and advertise your business. And I have friends in my local community who own businesses, and that's huge for them, is just saying like, hey, here's our gutter company, here's our plumbing company, etc. But that's a free way that you can be posting and getting out to people on social media. And then from there, I would see, where are your customers at? So for example, for me, or I guess I'd have a similar, my customers are similar to a bookkeeper's customers. So if I was starting a bookkeeping business, I would probably go join some local networking groups. Maybe I'm not the biggest fan of BNI, but that's a very popular one that is nationwide. We actually here at Matterhorn, when we started, we joined a local group that's not BNI, but is a similar thing where you're showing up every week and you're building relationships. And that's how we got our first big start, was just in our own local community. And then while we were doing that, while we were getting out and networking, we were building our YouTube channel, which is where most of my leads come from now. But it took a few years to get enough views and subscribers over on that channel. So while we were over here building our social media presence, we were boots on the ground, actually in the community, shaking hands and getting customers there. So I think a lot of people get enticed by social media because it is a great tool these days, but don't knocking door to door and actually meeting people in person anymore, because it does really work. It's a really great way to get that foundation of your customer base.
Yeah, absolutely. Even when you do find people on social media, you have a process to get them on the phone and still be able to have that conversation with them, right? So it's
right.
The skill set of talking to people it's always going to be there. I love this. What I heard from you is maybe one online method and keep the one online and one offline, which is like going to these BNI groups and kind of just work both of those angles. I love that approach. All right. So again, right now we have a business plan. We have a marketing plan, one offline, one online marketing plan, one offline marketing idea. We start doing marketing. Are you already thinking about pricing your product or service before you start? Where are you starting to look at that in the business plan?
Yeah. So when you're first starting out and trying to get your first customers, depending on, again, your industry, your reputation, there's a lot of factors, but a lot of times you might need to have some low pricing in the beginning, or even do some free work. Like let's say you're a graphic designer and you're going to go, you're working for a company, but now you're going to go and be your own independent graphic designer. So if you're working for a company, you probably don't have a portfolio that you can show people, except for, hey, I made some logos for Intel. Like that doesn't tell people like what your ability is, right? So you need to build up your portfolio. So going out and saying, hey, I want to create a new logo for your business for free, and in exchange, I just want a review and I want to be able to use that logo in my marketing. A lot of people take you up on free services. And then once you kind of build up that portfolio, you can start charging and kind of testing the water of what the market will will tolerate in terms of price. But I would say for the first couple customers to get under your belt, get some practice as a business owner. It's a different role than being an employee for sure. And having your own customer and client relationship, you have to get used to. So get a few free or cheap customers under your belt. Doesn't always have to be free, but maybe like half the price that you ultimately want to charge. But then eventually you definitely make sure you have profitable pricing, because that can really make or break your success down the road. I see a lot of people who are too scared to charge what they actually need to charge to be profitable. And then it ends up, coming back to bite them later when they can't sustain the business, right? So we're here to make money and to have time freedom, money freedom, all that good stuff. So if you want that end result and more time with your family and all of that, you're going to have to charge enough to make it worth your time and actually make sense for what you're doing.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we're here to make money. That's why you have the book in the background, Profit First, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you definitely have to do that. To that point, I'm curious to know, like when you start a business, we didn't get in this in the beginning. A lot of people start from the idea, like, hey, I want to go out and do this idea. But you're bringing up a point of a lot of people that are starting a business, they're thinking about that freedom. And so your business can give you that depending on the business that you want to build. Have you ever sat down with people and kind of define that first? Say, what type of business are you want to build? Are you trying to build a 7-figure business? Can you get by with maybe just a $500,000 business? Do you think that's a better place to start? Because now you know what you're going after versus just out there. You know what you need to charge. You know what you can get away with the margins. Do you feel that's a better place to start when looking at trying to start a business, or no?
I mean, definitely. And I do that exercise with people, whether they've been in business for 20 years or they're just starting out. We definitely want to know where we're headed. But I think when you're starting from scratch, you do need an expectation to manage your own expectations. So for example, if we use the bookkeeper one again, hey, I'm doing bookkeeping for this CPA, but I could just go out and do it myself. It's going to be easy. Boom, boom, boom. It's still going to be a lot of work, and you need to know how much work. Okay, I want to make $100,000 a year. I want to take home $100,000 a year from my own bookkeeping business. Okay, so there are going to be business expenses. You've got to kind of think with that, and then how many clients, if you're the only one doing the bookkeeping, how many clients do you need to bring in the revenue to take home $100,000 a year? And how much do you want to charge? And someone might think, oh, I only need to charge $30 an hour. I'm going to undercut my competition, yada, yada, yada. But when you do the math, if you only charge $30 an hour, there's no way you're ever, you would have to work 80 hours a week to make the $100,000 you want to make. So that's just an example. I don't know the exact numbers, but to your point, I do think it's smart so that you can set the expectations for yourself and know it's almost like a proof of concept for yourself, not just your customer base, but you as the owner of, does this business model make sense to give the result I want of more time and more money? Because I see that a lot, unfortunately, where people get into business for the freedom, but they end up just getting trapped by it. Now, I try to help people out of that trap. They usually are making some mistakes and that they don't realize, and I can get them out of that trap. But I have seen people in my community close down their businesses because they weren't thinking about the fact that they were going to have to pay a lot of insurance costs or a lot of licensing fees or whatever it applies to their industry. So you definitely want to set those expectations for yourself and know what you're getting into, especially if you're jumping ship from a steady salary day job.
Yeah, that's helpful. And I didn't even think about that too. You mentioned insurance, depending on the industry, it varies. Bookkeeper, there would be no insurance you would need as a bookkeeper, would you? Nothing.
There's sometimes I'm totally blanking on the name. I'm going to blame newborn sleep deprivation for that. But there's one, it's something in insurance, something in error insurance it's good to have just if you make an error while you're bookkeeping and someone tries to sue you, that insurance helps kind of back you up. So you don't have to have it to be in business, but it's one of those, it's it's nice to have. It's good to have. I work with a lot of home service companies is part of who I work with. And, they have workman's comp. It really kills that industry. It's really expensive to have workman's comp and the necessary insurance you need for that kind of, those kinds of industries. So that's the things that people don't realize when they're getting into business.
Right. So again, I know we keep going forward, but you're bringing up points that you need to know in the beginning, because that would affect our path going forward. And that's the case. So even like for me, starting a YouTube business, there was no insurance or anything that I needed. Right. All I need digitally. All I need is some cameras, mics, some lights, and boom, I'm off and going, and I can start learning the process and getting better that way. That's an excellent point. To know that, because that can affect your whole model. So let's just say, for the sake for this, we're a bookkeeper. We have that insurance for the sake of this argument. And for people that are listening, if you're concerned about, I don't know what the insurance is to get, I'm thinking off the top of my head, the easiest way to do this, you can type in your ID. I'm pretty sure you can go to ChatGPT, any one of the LLMs, and just say, what insurance would I need if I got into said industry? And it would list it out. Right. That would be a great place for you to start to know, okay, how do I navigate this? Back to the bookkeeper. We got we did some free work. We got some clients. We secured our first client, and say, for the sake of this, we want to make, $100,000 a month, but we want to start creating passive income, not always doing these bookkeeping options in the beginning. What avenues could we add for a bookkeeper to start making this to be passive versus transaction each time?
Yeah. So for that specific industry, passive would either be you're contracting out the work. So you're not doing the actual bookkeeping. You're just kind of making sure it's happening. I know a big thing these days is getting VAs from outside the country that are super cheap, which is very enticing for profit reasons, but you've got to make sure you've got, you're on top of quality control there. So let's say you hire someone in the Philippines and they're actually doing the bookkeeping and you're just kind of checking over the work. So that actually would be a great way to not have to be sitting there doing 40 hours of bookkeeping a week. You're just checking and making sure the quality is there. The other thing I would say is, in most industries, just the way society is these days, is you can usually find an affiliate program of some sort to connect with your customer. So, for example, I have a lot of softwares that I can recommend to my customers, my clients, of, hey, this software is going to help you track your statistics. This software is going to help you process your payroll, that kind of thing. And I can get commission when my clients sign up. So a bookkeeper can do the same thing. Maybe they're getting a commission from QuickBooks or upcharging the QuickBooks fee. A different payroll program if they prefer that over the QuickBooks payroll program, et cetera. Just off the top of my head, to me, that's the only way to probably make passive income on a bookkeeping business specifically. But usually getting those referral fees is a good way for most business models.
I love it. Affiliates, great. Outsourcing, great. I love it. I use I use a VA right now to outsource this editing for this podcast. So love it. So yeah, those are two ways to actually do that. And I love both. Affiliates is a great way. What else were we missing? Right. So we got some revenue coming in. We got additional revenue. Content. You can add in content eventually, making stuff around. And YouTube will be additional content. So that would be third. And of course, people, this would be later down the road once you got the basics built up, once you got pipeline built up coming in, before you start getting into that, because you don't want to stretch yourself too thin on this stuff. Abby, what else are we missing? What other things did we miss in the plan, or is the plan complete?
So one thing that I always go over with people, which might seem not as tactical or nitty gritty, but it's really important to understand the purpose of a business and the purpose of your business. Some people call this your mission statement or your why, but I think people get their why confused with the business's why. So you really need to have a clear vision of who you are helping and how you are helping them, because that's the true purpose of the business itself. The freedom that we're talking about is going to come as a result. But if you're only thinking about, and this is really hard because I know, especially as a parent, everything we do is for our kids, and same for me, very much so. But you can't only think with your kids and family in mind when you're planning for the business. You still have to make sure that you are taking care of your customer and fulfilling the purpose of the business. So that's where it's really tricky to be a parent and own a business. It's really hard to balance that sometimes. But just keep in mind who your target person is. That's what this exercise helps you with, is who you're targeting. You knew exactly, when we started this before we hit record, you knew exactly who you were talking to for this podcast, right? And knowing how you're going to help them. And when you keep that in mind, the rest of the business planning falls into place easier, because you can make decisions based on that basic purpose. So an example I like to use, I'll try to be quick, is a dentist. A dentist's purpose is to help prevent cavities, help people keep their teeth longer, right? Now I have a dentist near me that you can tell he owns his building, and attached to that building is a frozen yogurt shop, which in my opinion goes against the purpose of him as a dentist. Now that sounds like a profitable, a profit-based decision of, he can give people cavities so then he can take their money to repair them.
Right.
But that's not who we want to be, right? We want to be ethical business owners, sure. Right? So that's kind of an extreme example, but that's why you need to have the business purpose in line and that mission statement in line. It's going to help you with your marketing. It's going to help you decide what direction the business is going to go. Because unfortunately, if you're only focused on yourself and your own family, usually it's to the detriment of your customers or employees if you have employees. So that's where you've got to kind of balance both things.
Abby, it was perfect. We got a business plan, I think, in this time, about 30 minutes. We put together a business plan, and hopefully through this, and for the people watching, this is very, I know it's theoretical, but I think it's some value here in understanding kind of how to navigate. And what was mentioned here a few moments ago is understanding like your customer. I think it's going to be the most important thing, especially as your time is reduced. You have to be super specific on who you're talking to, so you're not wasting a whole bunch of space and time and reaching out to people. Abby, I will give you the last word here. There's a lot of people that are getting laid off, unfortunately. They want to start a business. Some might come to you. Hopefully they see this. We'll put your information in here so they can reach out to you as possible. Give them a final word if they want to go out and do this. What is the one thing or more than one thing they should know when getting into business?
I think I mentioned this in the beginning, but I like to be a realist, I guess, and just know that it's still going to be hard work. I don't like to buy into these internet people where it's like, oh, you just throw up an ebook on Amazon and you start making thousands of dollars. Like, even if you go that route, it's still work. So know that you're still going to be putting in hard work, but when it's something that's for yourself, it's so much more fulfilling and rewarding. And it might be the first year is really hard to get on your feet, but and you might not see your kids as much that first year, but you've got to look at the long-term game of, in the end, you're going to have more time. You're going to have more freedom. I do wholeheartedly believe business ownership is the best way to achieve that, but it's not easy, but it's fulfilling, which I think is the same with parenthood.
Absolutely.
Being a parent's the hardest job I've ever done, but it's also the most fulfilling. And then I think secondly is being a business owner.
Perfect. We'll leave it there.